Part of what you've heard us talk about is the pace of change, different learning styles, things of that sort. One of the things that we recognize is in today's world, different people learn in different ways. And there are certainly demographic distinctions with that. There are generational distinctions with that. But one of the broadest distinctions you see is the older folks, the older somebody, an employee tends to be, the more they skew towards desiring live. The younger they are, the more they tend to skew towards desiring online. Repeatedly, everything we've seen suggests that the most effective training is not putting all of your eggs in any one basket, but is creating a blended learning environment. It's recognizing that different tools for different learning styles, but also simply bringing different tools to bear for the sake of variety. You've noticed that we've inserted a little video in. Greg used a different format of, not really PowerPoint, but a variation of that called Prezi. You know, one of the things as we plan the conference is consciously looking at how do we keep things moving quickly so people don't get bored. We've had a break after every single session. I simply say that to tell you that we've consciously thought about a blended learning environment in how we put the conference together. You need to be doing the same thing in your organization. And literally one of the leading thinkers on that in local government has been Jessica and what she's done with the city of College Station. She's HR advisor is the formal title, right? Jessica's HR advisor with the city of College Station. We've worked with Jessica for a long, long time, and she clearly is a thought leader with blended learning. They have really been doing some stuff to think differently and get out of the traditional boxes. So it is a real joy for me to be able to introduce Jessica Matson to talk with you about blended learning.
On? There we go. Yay. All right, well, what an intro. Thank you, Ron. Great, all right. Let me first explain a little bit about my role at the City of College Station, and that gives us a little better understanding about how we created our learning programs. My title is HR Advisor. Traditionally, what that was for the City of College Station was employee relations. That would be working with our supervisors and our managers for any of those hiccups that come along the road when you're working with employees, working with teams. When we were looking at developing our training, it was a very nice dynamic to have that understanding as we're developing our training. So we were able to see, where are we running into problems? Are there common themes? Is there something that we're seeing happening across the organization that we really wanted to focus our energy on? So that was kind of interesting. My personal history, I've been with the City of College Station for just about 4 years. And prior to that, I worked at Texas A&M as an HR manager. Prior to that, I was living in California, and I worked for NOAA, the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration. So I've worked with federal government. I've now worked with local government for some time. So I know how to fill out a form. I know how to delay and take time, right? So it's nice to be here. Thank you for SGR, for Krissa, for Ron, everybody for putting this conference on. I think it's a great opportunity to get out here. So first, let's talk about the definition of blended learning. This is off of Wiki, and I will tell you, if you look at 10 different places for the definition of blended learning, you're going to find 10 different definitions. This is something that people interpret in different ways, but this is really the one that spoke to me the most. According to Wiki, blended learning is a formal education program in which a student learns, at least in part, through online delivery of content and instruction with some element of student control over time, place, path, and pace. All right, deep breath. So with this in mind, we created a couple of different programs, but before we developed the programs, we had to look at what our need was. And again, this is where my role as the HR advisor came into play, because we were able to see not only where do we want to be, but where are we right now? What are those problems that we're seeing happening right now where we need to focus our immediate attention? So if you have that opportunity in your organization to have conversations with people that are in the trenches, work with them to find out what common themes they are noticing, because that will show you where you need to put your first and foremost energy. And that's what we did. When you're looking at your need, you also have to take into consideration where your buy-in is. You know, is this something is learning an organizational focus, or is this something that HR is trying to push and everybody will fight, right? So find out where your organization is. What we had to do was work very closely with our city manager. At the time, we had Frank Simpson, who, as you may know, passed away, unfortunately. He was a wonderful man. So we really worked with him to figure out where his focus was and how much buy-in we had from that leadership level, because we needed that support in order to roll this out and make it successful from the top down. What we also did was we looked at developmentally, where were we within the organization? Were we dealing with people that were reluctant to take on training? Were we dealing with people that were excited and motivated about training? So we really had to step back and think about what are we dealing with within our organization before we start rolling this stuff out. So that's what we did. Currently, we have 4 main focuses for our training. I'll go into these a little bit more detail, but basically we've got what we've established as all employee required training. Everybody across the board. This was because we've wanted to focus on a couple of very specific topics. We want our organization to be a customer service driven organization. We wanted our organization to be an ethical organization. We wanted to make sure we were respectful in our organization. So we wanted to come up with a couple of themes that were across the board required for us. And then from there, we developed a supervisor training program, and I'll be very honest with you, that supervisor level is where we put the majority of our focus for the first 18 months of our program. Because in our work in the employee relations side, that was where we really had the biggest need. So that was where we hit hard and fast. Then we started creating an emerging leaders program. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. And then we also have on-demand training. So this is something that I'm really excited about, because this is where we get to be a little more creative in what we're doing. So let's break these down a little bit. Maybe. There we go. All right. So for our all-employee required training, what we had to think of is, how do we reach all employees? We've got people that are working on shifts. We've got people that are working out in the field. We've got people everywhere, every which way. So we had to figure out, how are we going to touch every single person across our organization with this content? What we did was kind of a 2-part approach. Any new hires that came in the room, anybody that was hired on board has to attend our onboarding process. So what we did was we incorporated learning into that onboarding process. So what we do is I come out and I speak with them about where we are as an organization, where our focus is, where we want our organization to be, and we assign them our courses through the SGR LMS. We've figured out 4 that are very important to us, and we give them that assignment during that onboarding process. So we're doing 2 things. We're meeting them face-to-face and discussing with them our core values, our mission, our vision, where we want to be as an organization. We're having that one-on-one, face-to-face, eyeball-to-eyeball conversation about it. And then we're applying the assignment that they go back on their own at their workstation within their department, and they complete those assignments. So it's reinforcing what we've discussed in person. When we did that, we also said, okay, when we're rolling this out to new hires, that's great, but how do we touch every single employee that's already here? So we did a couple of things. We met with each individual department head. We found out from them, how did they want this training rolled out for them individually? Now, it's a little more work when you do it that way, because you've got, however many departments you have, you're having to tailor and customize those number of programs. But with ours, we felt like we needed that buy-in from that department director level. So we figured out, okay, we've got some employees that are online and they've already got workstations, no big deal. We give them their SGR LMS login. They can do those online courses by themselves and discuss it within their teams, and we're all good to go. But what about those groups like sanitation? What about those groups like streets and maintenance? What about those groups like line techs that are out in the field? So we had to figure out a way that we can roll these out to larger groups that don't have access to a workstation. What we did was we hosted group presentations. For us, it looked like calling folks in on a Saturday for a couple of hours, bringing in some donuts or kolaches. We were heroes that day, right? HR were good people. So what we were able to do was bring them in as a group, facilitate the online course through the LMS. We're able to do that because we have licenses for everybody, so we're ethically involved, right? What we did was we not only showed the SGR course, but we involved them in a discussion. We also involved them with their leadership. So we had the department director there talking to them. So for these employees, how often are they able to be face-to-face with their department director? So this was another opportunity to get them face-to-face with people that are important to them in their role. So what we did with these is these goals got us closer to where we wanted to be as an organization. Again, we're reinforcing we want to be a customer service-driven organization. We want to be ethical in everything we say and do. We wanted to have diversity, awareness, those kinds of things. So we really focused our all-employee training on where we want to be. Okay. The next focus that we had was our supervisor level. And again, this is where we put our immediate focus because this is where we saw our biggest need initially. This supervisor training program is something that we developed to be very tactical, very hands-on, very nuts and bolts. This is very much how do we do ... How do you hire somebody? How do you discipline somebody? How do you follow FMLA guidelines? So this supervisor program is developed in a way that gives our frontline supervisors and managers tools that they need for their supervisor toolbox. I'm a very big proponent of giving them tools to be successful in their job. One of the things I always talk to them about is you've become a supervisor or a manager because you were good at the job that you did and were promoted up, typically. But once you become a supervisor or a manager, the skills that takes are completely different than the skill set you were good at that got you promoted into that position. So you are now in a completely different role. So what we did with this program was try to figure out what tools do they need to have in this role. What we did with this program is we looked at not just new supervisors, but people that have been working for the city for years and years and years, 25, 30 years. Because what we did is we looked at what skill set, what knowledge are they able to bring to the table to share with the group that have only been here for 4 or 5 years, right? So we really tried to sell it to them that way. Yeah, you already know how to do this stuff, but look at the knowledge you bring to the table for these newbies, right? So we tried to roll it out that way. And what we do in that is these training classes that we hold, the live classes are groups of people that would never normally interact. So I may have a supervisor from Public Works that's been here for 2 years with a supervisor from sanitation that's been here 20 years. So these groups may never ever talk until they come to these training sessions. So it's kind of nice to see that interaction happening. With this program, this is a very defined program, but we've created different elements into it. What we've done with this program is we developed 8 what we call core classes. These are topics that we felt are important for every single supervisor or manager. These are topics like FMLA compliance, preventing harassment in the workplace. These are topics like, let's see, I've got a whole list of them. Okay. HR laws, how often do those change, right? Risk management, workers' comp, things that people have to deal with often. So what we did was we created this menu of required classes that they have to attend live. What we did is we looked at the SGR courses that are available online through the LMS to look for companion courses that might go with those. So we assigned those as prerequisites to those live classes. So what happens is the participant logs online to the SGR system, completes their online course that gives them a baseline knowledge of understanding, then they come and they attend the live class. And they're reinforcing what they learned online. If they have questions about what they learned online, perfect opportunity to be face-to-face and talk about it. Perfect opportunity to find out what other supervisors are doing to stay in compliance. Perfect opportunity to find out, hey, did this make sense to you? Because it sure didn't to me, right? So what we did was we looked at what companion courses online can we assign to the live classes. So we created this blended learning with that program. We also created a menu of electives. So this is a long list of elective classes that they can attend, but they get to choose. This goes back to that whole blended learning definition. They have control over the topics that they attend. In order to achieve the certification program completion, they have to complete at least 4 for us. But they get to choose the 4. So perfect opportunity for them to say, I do a lot of hiring. I need to take a class on hiring and interviewing. Great. They can take that as their elective. If they're a department that doesn't do a lot of hiring, they don't need to take it and sit through a live class on something that they don't need. Another component of that is that this is a great discussion tool for that supervisor to have with their manager. Where do you see my role developing, and where do you see my focus going? Would you like to see me taking these courses and classes versus these? So it becomes a developmental tool for that supervisor as well. Not only a skill set that they will use hands-on, but as they develop, yeah.
So is this something that people are nominated to do, and is this something that has a big celebration around it? Like, it sounds like it's more or less like 18 months or 12 to 18 month type program.
This currently is not a nomination program so much as are you interested and would you like to be assigned into it, right? Previously, the training program that we had at the City of College Station was what they called a supervisor or a management academy. It was about a weeks-long academy. They went off-site. It was very much like a retreat. So when you look at principles of adult learning, you walk away from a week of that and you may have a couple of nuggets that you walked away with. So what we found is that program was probably about $1,200 to $800 per head that attended. We were able to stop that program and create this program that basically is free to the departments. We use our in-house subject matter experts, so we are not paying a penny for outside consultants. We're using people that are on staff. You're right, it is about a 12 to 18 month program, depending on how often they can get away from their workplace and get into the trainings. I typically offer about between 2 and 5 live classes a month, and they get to attend as their schedule allows. So if they can come to all 5 offerings, they can be done very fast. If they aren't able to get away, then it could stretch out a little bit for them, right? So we were able to cut down the cost. We were able to make it a little more palatable because they're not having to leave the workplace for a week at a time. They come in for a 2-hour class and they go back to work, right? So with this program, we were able to let them tailor it to the needs that they had. What do they need to know within their group? So having those elective classes allows them to choose topics that make sense for them to complete. So what that does is you get people in the room that are interested in being there because they chose to be there, right? We have topics that they are actually signing up for instead of being forced to take. So it's kind of a nice program. I'm pretty excited about it. What we've also created is our Emerging Leaders program. This is a little bit different. This is a nomination-based program. This is something that is very exclusive. We do it once a year. Basically, we are nominating what we consider to be high performers. So these are people that are up and coming. They may not be supervisors or managers, but these are high potential, high performing employees that we want to develop and grow within the city of College Station. We don't want somebody else to take them and take advantage of their leadership capabilities, right? We want them to stay with us. So with this program, we are using different things like classroom time, where they're actually coming face-to-face within the group. We're doing things like reading assignments, like these executive book briefings. We are assigning articles for them to read. We are doing mentorship assignments. So they've got to figure out who is their inspiring mentor. They've got to find somebody within the city that they want to work with and partner and create a mentorship opportunity. We're also doing online activities like web-based courses, webinars, things like that, offered through the LMS and others. And then also a group assignment. So with our last Emerging Leaders program, we actually came up with a couple of problems, and we had the group split up into subgroups, and they had to tackle that problem. And they had to come up to the group and present their problem and solution. So it was a way for people to work amongst themselves with people that they would never otherwise interact with. So it's kind of a nice program. Again, this is a once-a-year nomination-only program, and we're able to do it for very minimal cost because, again, we're using our on-staff subject matter experts. We're using tools that are already available to us. We're using real-time people and experts. So it's something that is definitely continuing for us. We did it as a pilot program, and it was so successful, we are actually doing more of this. Great. The last component that we're currently using is something that we are calling on demand. This is something that we were able to do a lot with out of the SGR LMS. Whenever I have a supervisor contact me for corrective action issues, again, that goes back to my role as the employee relations person. If I get a call from a supervisor that says, I've got issues with this group, or I've got issues with this employee, they are just not ... right? I can go into the SGR LMS and look at courses that might help them, courses that might reinforce the need that the department has to develop in them, and we can assign those courses to that person specifically. So we can say, as part of your corrective action, we want you to complete the course on anger management. As part of your corrective action, we want you to complete the course on diversity awareness, right? So we're able to integrate, not only slap on the hand, you've done bad, but here's some information that can help you understand where you went wrong and how you can develop and prevent this kind of behavior, right? So that's one component. Another component is performance management. So if we've got a manager that contacts me and says, hey, I've got somebody that is doing a great job, but I think they could do better. I want to get them more into financial planning and more into budget and those kind of things. We can look through the SGR LMS and look for any topics that might help them there. We can assign them courses through the LMS that speak to the development that they are looking for. Okay. Another thing that we've done, I call it ad hoc because it's just, there's no other way to call it. If you get Ron's 10 and 10 emails, anybody get those 10 and 10s, right? What we had was a wealth of information that came over email to only those people that were subscribed to it, right? So we were able to figure out a way to integrate the people that had completed courses through the LMS. For example, there's a course in the LMS called Generational Differences. I was able to run a report at the LMS of all the people that had completed that course and send them a link to an article that was directly related to generational differences off of Ron's 10 and 10. So they were able to reinforce the learning that they had online because they took this online course and they were able to read this article, and it speaks the same language. So they're seeing a reinforcing opportunity. If we have people that are within their team going through some things, we were talking earlier about the executive book briefings. I actually consulted with a manager who was saying, look, you know, I'm new to this team. There's some dynamics going on. I'm just really not sure how I'm going to manage this. It's kind of like an octopus right now. So we went through the executive book briefings and found the yes, 5 dysfunction of a team. Thank you. And he went through and did the executive book briefing on that and decided, hey, this is something that I want to do within my team. He was able to go through, assign that to his group. They read the book, they saw the book briefing, they talked about it amongst themselves in their staff meeting, and they're using that tool as they go forward in their team building. So this is something that we are seeing grow. We're seeing buy-in as people are attending the supervisor level trainings and they're going back to their departments and they're talking about it. They're also looking for more opportunities. So we're seeing not only the people that are participating, but we're seeing people that are hearing about it from those participants and wanting to get more involved. So we've got the LMS with licenses for all employees because we've got that all-employee required training. So we're able to assign these courses to them using those licenses, and it's a wealth of information and knowledge that's available to anybody. So we're able to expand it, we're able to use it in a way that is meaningful. They are getting information from their department, from their team, from their manager that's saying, hey, I watched this course and I think it'd be great for you. So we're able to do those assignments. Yeah.
I have a few questions, but I'll just try to keep them down because I don't want to dominate. So when you say it's an assignment, is this something that this is talking to your HR system so they onboard, they know the job role, with that job role, these classes go with it, and so there's an auto assignment and perhaps email prompts to say, hey, you have to go take this course and you've got 2 months to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes. The way we have done it is we have, for our all-employee training, we have decided on 4 LMS courses, and we say all employees must complete those courses. So they attend the the live onboarding meeting, and we go through what those 4 courses are. We talk about it. We relate those back to our core values, our mission, our vision, where we want to be as a city. We assign those courses at the completion of their onboarding meeting. They get an email that says, you've received these assigned 4 courses, and we can put in a deadline. We can say 90 days from now, you need to have these completed.
Will they get reminders? Does it automatically send them out, hey, you've got 30 days left?
You know, I have to admit, the LMS platform changed while I was out on maternity leave. So I am just learning. I just had a meeting with Lauren earlier. I'm getting into more of the messaging roles that this has. With the previous system, we were able to do assignments through there, and then I could run reports on who had completed and started but not completed. So that would be something that I would administer. So that would probably be a good question for Lauren to kind of go through it. Mm-hmm.
Are these classes able to be accessed through home computers, any computers, the library, or is it just a work platform?
The SGR LMS is web-based, so they are able to access it from every computer that has internet access. So that was helpful for us, but again, if you've got people that are hourly wage earners, you've got to make sure that they're aware this is paid work time. This is not time for them to log on at home and say, oh, don't worry about it, I've got it on my dime, because then you're walking into a wage and hour issue. Blah. So if you have people that are working at a workstation, great. If you have people that are working in a department and they don't have a workstation of their own, if you've got a kiosk, if you've got a department that has a department-wide computer. In our HR department, we've got a couple of computers open for people to do our online application of employment. So that was another opportunity. We could have employees come spend an hour or 2 doing their online courses at the HR department. So there's workarounds. I think that initially when we first thought about doing this all-employee required training, there's this, how are we going to do that? But there are workarounds. Doing these group presentations was helpful because you can pack a room like this, project it on the screen, complete all of the sign-in sheet, use that to log them complete, and everybody has attended it. We do that again because we have licenses for all employees, right? So what we're able to do is use what we have to get our goals met. Our goal was to have all employees trained with these courses. And we were able to do that by thinking outside the box. You know, is it one-on-one meetings and we go through it? I've actually had departments contact me and say, hey, can you come to our safety meeting? We've got an extra half an hour and you can project that course for us. They're already getting together for their safety meeting. Let's incorporate 30 minutes of that and complete one of these required courses. So it's something that we were able to tailor and individualize for our different groups, and it's something we were able to get out there to all employees. And again, it's making sure that everybody is on the same page. It's making sure that people are aware that we're a learning organization. We are looking at developing our organization and really competing with those private industries, because we're losing employees to the oil and gas industry. We're losing employees because they've got, you know, experience that's great for other people. We want them to know that at the City of College Station we value them, and we want to develop them. We want to give them opportunities to grow within our organization. So that's what we've done. All right, so in the future, this is where we're hoping to go. We're putting some energy into further developing an advanced supervisor program. So right now, if you look at the tiers, we've got our all-employee required training. Then we've got our supervisor level training. We're developing an advanced level training. So this would be less tactical and more leadership. So this is less how do I and more of who am I as a leader. So this is something where we're doing DISC behavior assessments, we're doing situational leadership. These are some of the topics that we're incorporating into this advanced level, which speaks directly to those leadership level folks, people that are not necessarily hiring, not necessarily disciplining, but they are leading their team into the future. So this certificate program is something that really speaks to them. Another program is our executive leaders. So this would be our department directors, city manager. This is something that we're looking to focus on in the future, because we need them on board with learning and them on board speaking the language of development, so that they are rolling that down within their teams and their organization. So that's where we're hoping to go in the future. All right, so any questions? I know I kind of breezed through a lot of that. We have developed a course catalog. If anybody's interested in seeing that, we've developed a lot of content on our own, and we've also looked at resources that are available out there and created some pretty good material. So if anybody's looking for anything, yeah. Right, right. Well, what we did was we looked to our department directors to show us who they felt was a high potential, high performer. We had some criteria. We said we want people that have been here at least for 12 months, that have really shown themselves to be interested in their role. We want people that are showing motivation for learning. We want people that are looking at developing themselves within the city. And so we had our department directors nominate people and have to speak to those things. So it's not just picking a name out of a hat and saying, okay, it's you this time, right? They had to actually quantify and discuss with us why they felt that person was a high performer. And then being a exclusive group, I would say our first group was about 10 or 12 folks. So what we're hoping to do is each department would nominate 2 or 3 folks a year, and then they would go back and discuss what they've learned within their group. So what we did to try and prevent the why them, not me, was we're having them roll out what they've learned within their group. So it's not, I've got this and you don't, nanny, nanny, nanny. We're asking them to go out and develop what they've learned by experiencing it with their group. So that's what we did. We are looking at expanding it in the future and creating probably 20 slots a year. But that's whether or not we've got 20 high performers that are really nominated for that program. Yeah.
And do they get some sort of, are you all civil service?
No. 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 Yeah. Oh, sorry.
What kind of feedback have you gotten from employees, and do you track any user results that have come from using it?
We actually have done a couple of SurveyMonkey surveys.
Would you repeat the question?
Sure.
They couldn't hear him in the back.
Sure. The question is, what kind of feedback have we gotten from employees that have started the programs? What we've done is we have done some SurveyMonkey surveys, not only of our all-employee required training, but people that have gone through our supervisor level training. So we've asked them, how are you feeling out of this training? Is it usable? What topics would you like to see added into the course program? And are you actually using the tools that you've learned? One of the classes that I teach is progressive discipline and corrective action. And what I do is I not only go through, this is the process for discipline, but I actually give them tools like sample discipline letters. I go through and show them sample performance improvement plans. So what we've done in creating this program is we've bridged not only the training, but the role of HR has expanded, because now they have a face-to-face person they can contact and say, hey, you remember when you talked about that in that class? Can I get a copy of that sample letter because I've got somebody not behaving, right? So I can say with very much certainty that over the 18 months that we did that program, we bridged and grew our working relationship with our departments tremendously, because we're face-to-face, we're eyeball to eyeball, we're having conversations, we are much more approachable because they have the opportunity to speak with us one-on-one in a non-threatening environment. Any other questions?
What were you going to say about your catalog?
Oh, our course catalog? We have developed a course catalog that goes through the core required training, talks about the prerequisites, and also gives a menu of those elective options. So what we do is, in the very first kickoff session, we call it Supervisor Basics, but it is basically an overview of our training program, where they're learning what their requirements are, they're learning what their role is as a learner, they're learning what the certificate program looks like, and they get that menu right at the beginning. So they can start planning and plotting their own development right there. They can see these electives, they can say, I'm interested in that one, not so much that one, I really need this one. And then what we do is we just pick a calendar, and we look 3, 4, 5 months ahead, and we just start picking topics off of that menu, start planning them, hold it in a room. What we do with shifts and things like that, if you've got firefighters, anybody have firefighters? They're the hardest people to accommodate because they've got this shift but not this day and da-da-da. So what we do is we pick days to offer classes that are on alternating shifts, so that we might have a progressive discipline class on Monday this week, Thursday that week, afternoon this week, morning that week, so that that topic is offered several times and they can pick when it works for them. So again, you're getting buy-in because you're flexible enough to meet their needs. So it makes it a little more work for us, but we want them to attend. We want them excited about the program, and the way that we do that is by being accommodating and allowing them the opportunity to come. So I would say with our program, our supervisor level program is the one that is the most time consuming because we have the most offerings in that program. I would say, again, I offer between 2 and 5 topics a month, and I may offer each topic twice a month, and each topic is typically 2 hours in length. But I will tell you, the benefit of having those live classes and being face-to-face with these groups is immense. I always make sure that I've got a good half an hour at the end of each class to use as discussion, because inevitably there's going to be somebody that comes up afterwards and says, you know what, you mentioned something, you know? And so it's a great opportunity. They've already got me there. They've already got the subject matter expert. If it's an FMLA class, we have our benefits person going out there. If it's an EAP class, we have a representative from our EAP come out and talk to them. So they're getting face-to-face with the people that are right there in the middle of it, the people that have the answers. They are learning from each other. We're seeing continuity across the departments because now they're all marching to the same drum, right? So if you've got one department that operates very strictly and another department that's very relaxed, they're seeing their polarity, and they're seeing that we need to get some continuity here. So it's a really nice group dynamic that we're seeing come out of that program. All right. Yeah. Yeah. Um, if you ask me, yes, right? Because I see the benefit. When I get a call from a supervisor that has been involved in the program, it is a much different conversation than it is with a supervisor that has never taken any of the classes. So I see a benefit from the employee relations side of the house. What we need, though, is we need a little more direction from our top right now. We've got a relatively new city manager. So we're waiting for some direction from him on where do we want to go with this program. I think he is trying to get his feelers out from the people that have been involved. I think that, honestly, and this is my opinion I'm throwing out here, there was a little bit of hesitation to get involved in this training program because the sour taste they had on the old program. Does that make sense? There was such a high price tag and such a low return for that price tag with the old program that they're not quite sold on wanting to get involved in the new program. So what I've done is, as I do these surveys, I ask for some feedback statements, and then I'm sharing those as I advertise for a new program starting. This is what the Director of Public Works had to say about the program, and I put in those comments. And I have people that are real-time involved in it giving feedback to help spread the word. Yeah, great. Any other questions? See, I'm supposed to be inviting when I hold my hands like this. I'm inviting questions, right? All right. Great. Well, again, thank you. I'm so excited to be here.